r/AskReddit. What are some very creepy facts? When you happen to be murdered, there is only an about 40% chance that your murderer will be found and punished. Edit. A lot of people are asking which country I'm referring to. This is a worldwide approximation. There are obviously countries with higher percentages of solved murder cases, but also some with even lower. For example, in the US there is a 40% chance to get away with murder. In Mexico 90% to get away with it. Organized crime, the overall amount of crimes in that area and war plays a huge role in this. The fact that you chose to use when instead of if makes this fact even more unsettling. After getting stung by a cone snail, you don't feel the sting for a little bit. There is no antivenom, and it can be lethal. Treatment is basically keeping the victim alive until the venom wears off. Cone snails are pretty freaky. Some of the most deadly ones can kill you in 30 minutes or less after they sting you. Their shells are super pretty too, so any beachcomber should be aware of these creatures and know how to pick up a shell carefully just in case someone might still be inside. What the hell? And where do these cute little guys live? Australia? In Hawaii? Definitely. My little cousin handed me a live one once. Did you die? Probably. There is only a 40% chance of finding their killer. Blobfish in its natural habitat looks like a normal fish, but it lives so deep underwater that it doesn't use a normal gas bladder to keep itself balanced. Instead, it has a spongy skin that is slightly less dense than water, which becomes damaged and bloated when fishermen bring it up too quickly. It's not really the ugliest fish. It has just experienced something worse than one of us being thrown into outer space. Between sea level and space, there's 1 atmospheric pressure of difference. Between sea level and 2,000 feet underwater, their upper limit, there's 60 atmospheres of difference. Now I'm sad for the blobfishes. Imagine being taken 5,000 miles under the ocean, having your skull be crushed by the immense pressure, then being called the ugliest mother ducker alive. I'm used to being called that, so we good. Female mummies in ancient Egypt were always more decomposed than their male counterparts. They discovered that this was because male bodies were embalmed a lot sooner than female bodies. Female bodies were kept at the family home until they started to decompose in order to avoid necrophilia at the embalmers. Well, that escalated quickly. How could anyone possibly know this? Someone found an ancient Egyptian blog post about it. It was on Tumblr. Locusts aren't a type of animal. They are a condition some grasshoppers experience. Many species of grasshoppers become locusts when they are too crowded. Literally, their legs rubbing together triggers the change. Once grasshoppers start to swarm, they will join up with others, physically grow larger, change color, and eat basically anything they find. Most of a swarm will be born as part of the swarm. Increased mating is part of swarm behavior. This is why it often seems like locust swarms come out of nowhere. Add in the amount of calories they need to stay airborne, and in addition to devouring acres upon acres of crops, they also cannibalize each other in the air. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse. If you begin to display symptoms of rabies, you will go crazy and die. There's no cure. Your brain will slowly melt until you're dead. The second you get bitten by anything, you should literally speed to the hospital. Unless you don't notice, because you were bitten by a tiny infected bat with tiny teeth. You didn't feel the pinch, because it happened while you were asleep in a hammock outside. I woke up with a bat in my bedroom and didn't capture it. I mentioned it to my doctor, who called the county epidemiologist. Then their office called me and strongly advised I get the rabies shots, because a sizable portion of people who die of rabies do so because they woke up with a bat and didn't realize it bit them. It's a very small number, but still. The scare campaign worked, and I wound up getting the series of shots. I had no insurance, but it was all paid for by the county. It was 5 sets of shots. The first one was a set of 2 rigged shots in my ass and a different kind in my arm. The last 4 were just the one in my arm, spaced out at a specific interval. It wasn't so bad, so if anyone reading ever needs them, don't be too freaked out. It was no worse than a tetanus shot, and it was not in my stomach or anything mad like that. One reason that crows and ravens are associated with death is because they would often follow armies as they marched to battle. Being both carrion birds and extremely intelligent, they realized that a large group of armed men marching on one direction meant that there would be a tasty meal of corpses to eat soon afterwards. In the US, if someone is kidnapped and not found within about a day, then there is a 97% chance the kidnapped person is dead. And 3/4 of them are killed within the first 3 hours of their abduction. That's why it's so important to go to the police right away, and for the cops to actually act immediately instead of waiting 24, 48, or 72 hours. Serial killer Richard Chase took any unlocked door as an invitation to come inside. This is the example I use every time my husband keeps the door unlocked. I need to start using this with my husband. He leaves the damn door unlocked all the time. Tarantulas can swim. I'm afraid to Google this. I just did. Looked pretty cool. Ducker was huge. Sweats profusely. When creating the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, they couldn't create skeletons that looked realistic enough, so they used real human skeletons. They've since removed all of them except one. The skull that's over the bed is real. My favorite ride. Damn, that'd have been one of the last ones I guessed. It looks so weirdly elongated. I guess I'm used to fake skulls in movies and such, so the real one looks off. A black mamba is the fastest snake, which can slither at a speed of 12.5 miles an hour, 20 kilometers per hour. They have neurotoxins which are fast acting. The venom shuts down the nervous system and paralyzes the victim. Its venom is able to kill 10 people and it repeatedly bites. To add on to this, there is an almost 100% kill rate and can kill in 20 minutes. The venom of a black mamba can kill a human in 4 hours if, say, bitten on the ankle or the thumb. However, a bite to the face or torso can bring death from paralysis within 20 minutes. Now, you should listen to this, cause this concerns you. The amount of venom that can be delivered from a single bite can be gargantuan. You know, I've always liked that word. Gargantuan. So rarely have an opportunity to use it in a sentence. If not treated quickly with antivenom, 10 to 15 milligrams can be fatal to human beings. However, the black mamba can deliver as much as 100 to 400 milligrams of venom from a single bite. Ducks become cannibals due to boredom, of all ducking reasons. They can only be stopped by cutting off their mouths. Don't duck with ducks. Quack is whack. It's finally my moment. If you live to age 70, you will have shed around 105 pounds of skin. Cool. At least there's one thing to look forward to when I'm 70. Can't wait to freak everyone out when it happens. Make sure to have a huge party and give a speech right before it happens, like Bilbo before he put on the ring to freak everyone out. There's a parasite that enters a fish's mouth, eats the tongue, and replaces itself as the fish's new tongue. As a fish, there is not a cure and it sucks. I keep saying stuff I don't mean to say. Crocodiles can gallop like a horse. I don't like knowing this, so I'm cursing you people with this knowledge as well. Fortunately, alligators cannot. So that's how you tell them apart. Yeah, but now I'm confused how to tell a horse and crocodile apart. It was once discovered that a fir tree was growing inside a human body. Artyom Sidorkin went to the doctor suspecting something wrong with his lungs. The doctors thought they were dealing with a tumor, but turns out he had inhaled a fir tree seed which had sprouted and had begun growing in his lungs. He also had a watermelon and a gum tree in there. Cockroaches have been recorded eating human flesh, both living and dead, as well as fingernails, eyelashes, feet, and hands. The American cockroach and German cockroach are more likely to bite humans than other species. Pretty sure Australian cockroaches do something equally creepy, but as an Australian who plans to sleep at some point in the future, I'm not going to Google it. There are many studies that show they don't like human contact and will clean themselves rigorously if they touch us. Our skin is very oily and can suffocate the breathing holes in their carapace. So we are the creepy factor cockroaches. Nice. We're the creepy factor most life on Earth. It's quite common after you die to burp a lot as you have more gas buildup. Dead bodies can also sit up on their own sometimes. Also, if a pregnant lady dies, sometimes the gas buildup in the body as it decomposes forcefully pushes the baby out. Thanks, I hate it. I also hate the post-mortem baby bazooka. There was a speech made for Apollo 11 if they were to die on the moon. Side fact, if it were to happen, people would look up at the moon knowing that crew died there and their bodies would rest there till the end of time. Not forgetting that the ocean is somewhat like this, many people died there too, at the very depths of the sea. Also, their bodies would not have decomposed because the moon has no oxygen. Instead, they would become mummies. Ancient Egyptians hate him. It wasn't until 1987 that the American Academy of Pediatrics declared it unethical to operate on newborns without anesthesia. Until surprisingly recently, the medical community felt it would be dangerous to give infants anesthesia and/or believed that they didn't feel pain. Thank God I was born in 1987. People don't take their anti-malarial drugs when they travel because they hear bad stories about the side effects and they see native people in the areas living okay without taking pills every day. The truth is, populations native to malaria endemic areas have all passed through pretty intense natural selection for survival and have a host of genes that prevent them from dying or suffering the other worst effects. Also, most of the resistance is built up over time. This is why it's most common for children to die rather than adults. Whatever people have heard about the side effects of the antimalarials, getting it is so much worse. I, fortunately, have never had it, but I study it as part of my work and people have told me about having it, and they all say the same thing. It is so awful you can't believe you're even still alive. It comes in cycles, usually 48 hours, and each cycle is agonizing and brings you the brink of death. Sometimes it takes you, sometimes it spares you for another few hours until it starts again. And there are forms that, even if you clear the infection with drugs, it still remains dormant in your system and can come back at any time. Mount Everest is covered in frozen corpses because removing them is very unsafe and time consuming. They are easily viewed from the climbing routes and some are used as trail markers. What's odd is that, although the bodies are prominent, in some cases there is no consensus on their identity. Like over the years, two different people with a similar description didn't return from their Everest climb, and we know the body is probably one of them, but not sure which. Or is it more creepy that some of the bodies are indeed identified, and somewhere out there is a family who knows full well that their loved one's remains are a landmark on the world's most famous mountain? There have been rare occasions where the family pays to have the body brought down, but it's incredibly expensive, tens of thousands of dollars, and extremely dangerous, and so it's rarely been done. There are upwards of 300 active serial killers in the world. Seems low honestly. 300 is a lot, but out of 8 billion? Famous last words though. Known to be active. Think about how many people go missing and are never found. The stonerfish, an incredibly venomous fish living in tropical waters mostly off the coast of Australia and parts of US, can cause pain that only escalates with time. Eventually the pain will subside, but even after the barb is removed, patients have reported increasing pain 12 plus hours later. Without antivenom or denaturing the venom with excessive heat, the pain builds and builds until the patients request euthanasia. Its spines hold the venom, hidden in its dorsal fins. Aboriginals living around the Great Barrier Reef have corroborees, large gatherings, and will during these gatherings hold reenactments of people being stung by this monster, for what I assume is either amusement, learning, or both. I can attest to this. I was scuba diving in the Galapagos through a Discover Scuba thing, because I'm not actually certified. I was with a guide who explained what all the hand signals meant before we went on the dive, but when we went down, I obviously forgot everything because I was having a great time and he made a weird hand signal, so I decided to stop swimming and put my hand on a piece of coral to stabilize myself. It was a stonerfish and let me tell you, it hurts very bad. I'm honestly grateful I made it to the surface without passing out and spitting out the mouthpiece underwater. I did end up passing out on the boat back to the hospital and woke up with a nasty headache and still some pain in my hand. All I'm left with now is a scar and a cool story. Hearing is the last thing to go after you die. You just might hear the paramedics and firefighters call off CPR. Man, that sucks. You might know that you are too far gone and that you will die. Well, if hearing is the last thing to go, your brain probably isn't doing much thinking about anything at that point. A single tiger has killed over 436 people in India. How many has a married tiger killed? There are more creatures in your mouth than there are people on Earth. There are more cells of foreign creatures in and on your body than there are of your own cells. CNN has had a pre-recorded broadcast from the 90s which they will premiere during the end of the world. Imagine being totally aware of someone performing CPR, but you physically can't move or respond. Well, that's what happens when you get bitten by a blue-ringed octopus. You have approximate 6 minutes between being bitten and someone starting CPR to keep your heart and lungs functioning to ensure you survive, all whilst being totally aware of what is happening to you. Neurotoxins are fun. The really creepy thing about this is one story of a guy who got stung, got CPR performed on him and survived, but went blind because he was lying on his back, eyes open, unable to blink because of the paralysis, staring into the sun. Imagine lying there, unable to move, unable to communicate, the sun slowly burning out your eyes and you can't shut them. In the Czech Republic, there is a church called the Sedlec Ossuary that has decorations made entirely of human bones. This happened because there were too many people in the cemetery to bury everyone, and the church leaders claimed that if their bones became part of the church, it only made them closer to God. More than 7,000 people die annually due to the doctor's bad handwriting. Another creepy fact is that one can die from drinking water. It has to be 9 liters of water at once, and you are a dead man. Please don't try it. So we know the limit is 8.99 liters. Got it? There is an insect the size of a human hand, called a tree lobster. Luckily it can only be found in Ball's Pyramid Island, Australia. Kinda obvious that shit's living in Australia.